Well, anyway, hello Zoom, hello the other place. My name's Katie Zitterbart. I actually solved the three-body problem. And I'm about to make some claims, big claims, to very big names about the sensory motor cortex. I got a little activation going on because this feels like it's a really big deal because I'm about to ask people like Ray Kurzweil to check my work. Ray Kurzweil is a futurist who has been aware of and speaking to the concept of singularity for a very long time. I have been following him and his mind and how he has been contemplating since I was a teenager. So my lifelong interest is consciousness and states of awareness. If you're just joining, I'm discussing becoming paralyzed and navigating that, and it's going to be disjointed, and you're welcome to ask any questions. I'm making my claim about the pathways and the structure of the sensory motor cortex based on having absolutely no prior training in brain at that level, ever in my life. I am making the claim that I understand sensory motor because I intuited and saw, oh, I'm so sorry. And I just found out about this geometry, within the last 2 days, okay? Taoist alchemy, the whole purpose of Taoist alchemy is to mess with entropy. And historically, Taoist alchemy is rooted in the acknowledgement of the profundity of generation of beings. It is a profound thing to be able to create. And so, again, fuck if I know, I don't understand that. I've been experiencing Taoism and engaging in non-dual thought processes and different kinds of contemplation, blah, blah, blah. So by the time I started to become paralyzed in LA, I already had decades and a lifetime of training in body, mind, spirit, consciousness, big data, and any of the science I would have needed to apply or ignore for my own healing, okay? So when I tell you I have had privilege as it relates to direct access to a framework that's a big flippin' joke. This is your umbilical cord, okay? It's smile. The first practice of Taoist alchemy, smile. Okay? So let me teach you how to smile, because this is a very particular way of smiling. In alchemy, we're going to smile. If you literally smile to the inner child. And look, this is what happens. Okay, so you bring the tip of your tongue to the ridge behind your upper teeth. Okay, and then smile. And you're just like, oh. When I instruct the healing smile, and again, I did not know an umbilical cord is built this way until 2 days ago. I've intuited all of this. I say intuited, I'm a student of Tao, clearly. But so what it does when we do the healing smile and you get that tip here, it emulates this. It's where babies attach to feed. And it's one of the first evolutionary, developmental, I guess, that's a good way of putting it. It's one of the first developmental moments of both tensegrity and transformation in Taoism, which I am very well versed in many other dimensions and fields. So the way a tensegrity structure operates is there are 2 fixed points and 1 can move. And so this is a model of how our connective tissue is built, it's structured as tensegrity. Thank you. I'm supposed to encourage you to share my live. Come on in, ask questions if you have them. I'm speaking about a whole bunch of things, and I'm about to make some claims that I understand sensory motor cortex from the inside out. Because I understand deep learning and neural net. Anyway, this is your fascia. Okay, this is one of my subject matter expertise areas as it relates to biology, human, pain, relational pain, and very much especially doing strange things with my body. I'm considered an edge player in certain circles. I have no technical knowledge. I don't know how anybody does any of that magic. Let me get into this. I've helped change laws that make your lives easier. Okay? One of these rods, as its own moment of tensegrity, also has, you see this is a fixed point and this is fixed. And do you see how this can go up and down? So this is mobile. These are fixed. But it doesn't mean that they're immobile. They're fixed in relation to this. The way we create dimension through tensegrity is with strings, bands, okay? All the string theory humans, get over here because you're just talking about fascia. Everybody needs to learn about living tissue. So let me show you how my paralysis played out. And again, you're just gonna believe me. But I know some secrets these boys don't. The concept of pelvic bowl, right? I don't know if you've ever been instructed in the concept that the pelvis is like a bowl. And that's a very common analogy or metaphor also as it relates to pregnancy that I hear. This is how it would be experienced through your kidneys. When we have buoyancy inside, the experience is, so this is, here would be your belly button. You're coming in from the back. Ballroom, love it. And actually you do use it in ballroom because dance requires a lot of mirroring and understanding of center of origin for your partner. So this, okay, this as a tensegrity structure, your spine alone as a tensegrity structure mirrors having a fixed top, fixed bottom, movable in the middle. It mirrors. It's not the same, but it mirrors. So we are a tensegrity structure. That's amazing, truly, because it means there's always going to be something else happening, something inherent, some pathway, okay, for whatever who knows? Who knows? I've always called it the magical mystical. Like, if this is going to help me also hold up a suspension bridge, like, what is that magic? I don't understand it. Okay, but it works. So as I was becoming paralyzed, this first became like a brick. I had absolutely no sensation at all in my coccyx or tailbone. This is a very dangerous state to try to walk around in. Coccyx tailbone is one of the ways that we create lift in our movement so that our legs aren't just like holding us down. So it gives us a little like this. So that was going. Now let's just, for shits and giggles, here are the right and left side of my body. Since nervous systems do that, right? They branch out. I lost sensation in both of my feet. Okay, I was also dissociating. I was having non-epileptic seizures. I was living in the home of the humans who were psychologically abusing me. And from a polyvagal perspective, that I want to show you on art. We have to start looking at art. We've got to stop looking at our bodies as though they are fixed. Okay? Bodies are not fixed, not living beings. So as I was losing my feet, okay, I was also losing my orientation. I was losing my mind, genuinely. I fractured in my awareness of self so much that within like a month, I went from managing identification, it is communication, it is in a month, I went from being in charge of identity verification on the blockchain internationally, international compliance. I have Vicente Fox's phone number, President Vicente Fox. That's how I engage with the concept of that war. Okay, I'm very sincere, and I just get all this access. I could not add two cells together in an Excel spreadsheet. That is the very entire purpose of my art, although I don't know what neuroleptic is. My art is neuroaffective, AFF. It's about the affect. It's about the lived experience, not just the definition. And Taoism is very much about the lived experience because you can't quantify that. You can only communicate it. And do you see what happens if I shift from quantifying something, to this? Then it's probably lovely, but I don't know it. Leptic leads to epileptic, and that tells me that that's very focused on the corpus callosum and the split in the prefrontal cortex, but we have other splits in our brain because our brains are triaxial frameworks, not biaxial frameworks. So I think anything that has neuro in front of it, not to the therapy at all, to the rhetoric of trauma, to the rhetoric of therapy, anything with neuro in front of it that isn't a triaxial frame can only ever be in the medical model and will only ever lead to, that's what the medical model does. I'm not saying that's what happens in the moment. I'm saying it's all based on synthesis, right? So it's based on this idea that there's a measurable amount of whatever that is. And if you don't have this measurable amount, or if you're not communicating or displaying it in the correct way, that's the affective aspect of neuroscience, then humans who might have power and influence, or even just not really be aware of our own biases, we can operate in ways that are unknowingly harmful. Because it's about tuning. And the attunement that we experience, hi, Dr. Douglas. We're pivoting to Kurzweil. I have letters drafted to Kurzweil, Tufte, and Hofstadter. I'm pretty sure I just mapped the sensory motor cortex because you told me sense of bum also. So I'm pretty sure you and I need to have a conversation. Anyway. And my understanding of this is because of my background in music and art, not because of any science I know. I'm telling you how the science fits, okay? I'm not making a claim. I'm telling you how it fits. Then you can decide if you want to try. This area here, okay, and also, hello. This is so connected to our lymphatic system and our concept, every concept we have about immunity, safety, is corrupt at the source. There is way too much distortion, and I know that because I had massive distortion when I was paralyzed. When I was so dissociated, I kept telling my therapist it felt like my consciousness was here. We have a concept in Neidan called a Shen. They show up also in Chinese medicine. They're entities. Fucking find out. They're the magical mysticals. Okay, I did not have a cohesive understanding of Shen as I was becoming paralyzed, but I did have a magical, mystical relationship to whatever this chart is from Chinese medicine. Okay? It's magical, mystical. I've been a scholar of this for how many decades? The mythology and the some of these practices, and obviously the alchemy. So inherently, my inherent seeking, because of music, because of having queer parents, because of not knowing my autism, because of whatever, I'm always looking to land. I'm never looking to stand first. I'm always looking to land before I stand. That comes from hanging off of the ceiling as potted plants and doing things for education. So from the paralysis perspective, I knew I had to find my feet, but I also needed to have a way to land. The thing that caused my paralysis was a whole bunch of not good that culminated in two friends of mine psychologically abusing me, and I almost died. And then it's okay, it's just what happened. And then, it's just what happened now. And then when I got literally back off my feet and was about to put away my mobility device, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. That was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So because of the state of my nervous system going into cancer, because I did not have reasonable anything that somebody could be living with me while I was having cancer and this pandemic was going on, without a fully resolved functional neurological reality, I did all of my chemotherapy, radiation, and recovery somatically isolated. I did it all by myself. I had tons of help around. I had nobody proximal, and I was relating to this. I don't relate, this is symbol. All of the science is amazing, but we don't experience through that. We experience through this, and maybe some of that is of this, but it's not of that. I don't know if that makes sense. Let's see what I can do. So here's my bio of my body, and I can't walk, I can't think. I couldn't write. My hands, I had tremors, I was having non-epileptic seizures. So the choice in a moment like that, because I still had awareness, I knew stuff was all kinds of messed up, all kinds, and I had awareness. I knew I had to get out of that location. I knew I needed to get towards somebody who has some knowing of me prior to that. And then I needed to be able to land. Not to fix anything, not to land. So I could literally get back on my feet. That ended up with me in Pittsburgh because this is my origin. I went home, location of home. Because I built these deep neural networks, I built Yahoo, and I understand data through taxonomy, and I do cosmic juggling with this alchemy. I also intuited correct alignment for all kinds of things, like not becoming a supremacist during cancer. So, but I want to show you how this turns into art. So the way that I use myth and metaphor and symbols is really particular. The symbols especially, because when we're doing information architecture, instructional design, anything that you're going to learn over time, and very much music and stuff that's to be just distributed and interfaced with, we need consistent nomenclature, but also visual cues. And one of the things that's not consistent anywhere globally, but very much as it relates to health, one of the things that's not consistent is what our eyes are being guided to. because our eyes are being guided to formulas and charts and big things. Our mind is being told to regulate, and we're looking for evidence. And what that does to, like, you know, it makes it very difficult to get a nice balance here. So this is our inner ear. This is how we experience vestibular, right? There's also a major lymphatic moment happening here. And then there's another lymphatic moment happening here. And this is the one place on your body where your shoulders, yes, going back to the open mind, empty your cup. So just to complete this thought, so your shoulders only connect here. And I'm still pretty collapsed. My body is, woof, but to be not having feeling, not having sensation, to be like, oh my gosh, what's happening? This is the natural inclination of protection. And here's the one point of solid. The cues to like sit up straight, that's forcing all of your soft tissue to hold this. And if some of this is not functioning, like arms and legs, hello, then that's also just like kind of mean. It's just kind of mean. So if we contemplate the spine and the body as having an inherent amount of volume, not mass, volume. I just became a flippin' theoretical physicist because every single model that I'm presented with as it relates to health, trauma, or whatever, none of it has volume. It only has measure. So the pitch is way too sharp or high, or the reed itself, okay? Because and also I don't actually know how to play any of these instruments. My father taught conductors how to conduct, and opera singers how to be singers, and like symphonies how to, I don't fuck if I understand. But this is all just from my childhood. The different instruments create different kinds of resonance. And my mother used to play the trumpet. And she would say to me that trumpet players are the most challenging entities in an orchestra because of the pressure that builds in their head. And I just was like, Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. I do have to say, a brass band is an interesting experience. And I was raised in part by Dennis Caldwell, who I think just retired recently as the director of the music department at Carnegie Mellon University. So when I tell you I had access. There's a whole bunch of fuckery that happens in music that is all just, who knows? I don't know. Especially with conducting, because when you're conducting, you're managing flow. You're not giving assignments. This is the hierarchy. The hierarchical structure of an orchestra is inherently a taxonomy, and that has been very beneficial for me in my recovery, because then I only have to go step by step by step. I don't have to go all the way. So I'm losing my legs, can't feel my feet, I can't feel my tailbone. Can you see how that's like a body and a bum? There's stuff upstairs, right? So you can get your own, and you can play with this like a coloring book. This isn't, it's just a picture, but it's like a really cool one. This is Chinese medicine, if you're wondering. While I was dissociated, while I couldn't add, while I couldn't say my name, while I couldn't stand, but I could still pee and poo and like all of that, if I obligated anything upstream to manage anything downstream, I would have not continued to be alive, because that is an impossible problem. It is the wrong kind of impossible. This is the impossible problem of polyvagal theory. And these guys allowing yoga instructors to call themselves neuroscience without having proven their own model is some of the most egregious bullshittery I have ever become aware of in my life. And I've trained with the inventors of these models for decades. They've never bothered to try to prove it, because if they did, they would realize that the rhetoric is deadly, not healing, because the rhetoric of trauma is fixated in this location right here. All rhetoric occurs at the junction of awareness. I just made that up. Let's make that true. All rhetoric occurs at the junction of awareness, not the consumption of the media. So we have a really big opportunity. There's a space here where we can have distance from thought, distance from, it's just a way to like change the lens. And so when I couldn't write and I couldn't think, and I was like, I have a master's degree from Carnegie Mellon and blah, blah, blah. Well, I could sit in bed and like let my hand do whatever. That I could do. So you see, this is the weaver. This is my natural weird inclination. Okay, I believe she is the embodiment of dark matter. Not sure. I'm not that kind of Chinese scholar. But see, the thing is, in order to even have existence in the first place, you need a kickstart, right? You need a kickstart. And I always just like made it magical mystical, just make it up. Okay, whatever, I'm changing dimension. When I do information architecture, this was a long, long time ago, but I seeded all the deep neural net of Web 1.0. I was very influential in all of those ethical decisions, and also how we were displaying information so that you would spend money. And my role was making sure it wasn't likely to turn into propaganda, not that it was accurate at the source. Okay, the matrix is big data. And due to the misalignment of our species for the last many years, and very much because enough humans, enough of humanity lost the ability to discern by losing sense of smell and taste. I'm not saying if you lost your smell and taste that loses your ability to discern at all. But there are definitely, absolutely, there's a section of the population for sure that has been permanently reoriented due to the dysfunction of primal senses, not primal urges. This is where we urge, this is where we experience our sense, okay? We do not have proper alignment to the horizon anymore as a species. I'm always looking for proper alignment to the horizon, which is why I survived my paralysis, isn't it? Because a lot of this was happening. My paralysis, we're leading up to George Floyd. I'm trying to move across the country. I have to sign contracts in that state. I'm still not able to like fully understand how I can best contribute to society. Truly, I cannot wait to talk to the big data humans. So the thing that I did intuitively when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and now I'm going to show you the epigenetics, it's amazing. I intuited one non-dual death process because of cancer and paralysis. I went into the isolated cancer already done, already willing to stop existing. Not wanting, not whatever, not willing. It was in my will, that I was in a binary. I was either gonna go into cancer, isolated, blah, 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 and come out, or I was gonna go in and not come out. So the alchemy I set up is based on this grain here. And I said, I'm just gonna take whatever it is and plant it. Again, this was all just because of the myth. I'm gonna plant it down here, okay? We're gonna burn the field. This is the crimson palace. This is magma. Okay, I buried me under this. Okay, I then moved my dantian. Do you see this? Okay, I symbolically moved that outside of my body for the totality of my cancer. I forgot to put it back in. So once I did that, many things started to turn back on. So I still have this dantian, but there's so much happening in my body. Like, I wanted anything that had the potential to seed and grow without my awareness to be set up as towards life as possible. And towards life is this way, not this way. Okay, do you see how this becomes like a turnstile, becomes a turning, yeah, like you go into a, what are those doors that have the, and then you go around in the door? That's what this is. Everywhere you can perceive gravity here is a landing in the body as well. And a lot of my fractured consciousness just found its way. So as I was becoming less dissociated, and just to show you, this is the essence of Tao. This is the essence. That's all it is. But it's these balls, okay? These are cosmic balls of love, we are calling them now. And they map to the 3 energy centers in your body and the 3 primary types of energy, as well as 3 treasures. So you see it's like a triple trine, right? So we have 3 treasures, 3 centers, and 3 kinds of energy. Taoism is always one thing 3 ways. Always, 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 always. You cannot get away from the yin and the yang unless you have a trick. Let me show you what I intuited when I was like, how am I going to teach regular yoga humans this? Because they still believe that there's a this and a that. So I thought, well, I need some way to illustrate the magical mystical. Oh my goodness, I was so excited that I found these things. I wanted to show you what I did. I've been basing this all on the concept of how do I experience a Merkaba like this? Okay, because this is the only way I can look at the energiometry of a Merkaba in the 3rd dimension. How do I become this? Which, by the way, is a tensegrity structure. I don't remember what I was looking at. Oh, I was looking for the fuse. So you do it with toys, basically, okay? The whole nature of the universe doesn't matter because children survived. Right? So like at some point you're just learning stuff or unlearning. But learning and unlearning are not, they can be chemical, but they can also be much more organic. Damn it. Can I tell you, I keep having this concept that I'm like more organized than the 3rd dimension. The 3rd dimension is very difficult because things are not the same. Okay, so anyway, so I have 3 treasures I hold dear: compassion, moderation, and humility. Those map to 3 ancestries, as in epigenetics. So the 3 treasures, relative weight, this is compassion, this is moderation, and this is humility. And the reason for that is this is the water element, and water conducts electricity. So if you want to be a nervous system regulation human, okay, this is speaking to your myelin sheath. Viscosity, not to hardware. Too many neuroscientists have never actually built anything very clearly, speaking to trauma, very, very clearly. And so I think they need to stop discussing the nerve, because what polyvagal theory requires of us is that this be fixed. And do you see how much mechanics is here? There's a ton of mechanics. all of that creates an experience of buoyancy. This is our pericardium. I know this now that I have navigated the totality of this. I did not know this going into whatever experience I had, okay? I just applied and rejected thought. And then when I was like, how would I communicate this? The only way I could think of to show you on a piece of paper is this. So when I was fractured, when I was paralyzed, right, I didn't have my feet. This, by the way, is the bagua mapped onto a body based on the nexus at the belly button. And that's how I got to understand my own umbilical cord. And it's a big smile, it's a big fat lie, because Lao Tzu wasn't even a real person, okay? I have been relating to Lao Tzu since I was like 13. He wrote the Tao Te Ching. Tao Te Ching is propaganda for the generation and restriction cycle of Chinese medicine. It's an impossible thing to end. Nobody told me that volumetrics is real from a physics perspective. I just thought it was like a weird way to handle a notebook and to like do things. Volumetrics, volume, and you're looking at things like the density, the experience of hello, isn't that a human? Physically, what I experienced when the synthesis occurred, when my mind, right, when I got back in my mind to horizontal, I was shown the geometry of my own pineal gland. That was terrifying. And that's when I thought I might actually be losing a little bit of connection. So the first thing I did was call my psychiatrist, not my therapist. I called my psychiatrist. And I said, I think I'm manic. The other thing I did was email, so I had paper trail. I have attained enlightenment. I have done the thing. I declared mastery of Taoism to my therapist, because she is part of my care team. One of the transcendental meditation God status humans who's been teaching that for decades, and he is also a psychotherapist in Jungian and Gestalt therapy. So I knew he could help me discern what was happening. And I called a student of the Dalai Lamas. Okay, I knew what to do. I have been very well trained. So basically, I'm pretty sure that by surviving the isolation and whatever, my prize is I can now map the sensory motor cortex, because I had to navigate the totality of it in order to survive. And I navigate consciously, not consciously. So I just want you to notice that that looks like weird. Do you see this peak here? In the experience, when I experienced Taoist alchemical birth, you can see this is a loris. This is a lot of what we hear about the heart energy, the energy of the heart. If this was a human, right? This was like, oh my gosh, it was like a canopy and a gentle mist. And I had been discussing that we really need to be talking about environment with my therapist as I'm attempting to get into post-traumatic growth, which she refused to acknowledge enough that I had to fire her. This woman cannot see growth. She's so connected into trauma. She's also had COVID 3 times. Okay, does she have discernment? Can she sniff things out if this has been disrupted? And I know at least 2 of those it was. So what's going on, I think, which is why I need to find some like neuroscience humans. When we develop, when we're gestating, because this is also a fetus, of course, when we're gestating, there are magical mysticals. Okay, I just learned about these magical mysticals. This, by the way, is the thing we need to do. We just need to sit down. Remember that we exist. and align with the back line, not the front, the back end of the humans that we're with, not the front end. This is how we get off of the cycle of karma, which is only distortion, or at least as I understand it now. Okay, I've been contemplating karma for 40 years. You can challenge me on that if you'd like. So this peak here is, how do I lose something that's like right next to me? I'm amazing, by the way. Isn't this incredible? I am sitting, I have not moved. I can't find a piece of paper. I'm telling you how your flippin' sensory motor cortex operates. I've always said, just, 7 or more. I don't do well with 3 dimensions. Didn't I just have my pineal gland in my hand? Well, we have this, and it's this. It's the Mountain of the 9 Peaks, okay? But this also is a way to visualize. It's the ventral horn. So we have something, and I want you to see what I'm doing, because this, again, is just like all intuitive conducting energy for me based on who knows, okay? But we have these ventral horns I just discovered. And so when I'm thinking about or contemplating like homeostasis and balance, one of the things we're looking for is that this pivot point here not only has mobility, but it has flow, right? This is our mandible, this is sternocleidomastoid, this is eating, chewing. This is a very important junction. This is also inner ear, vestibular imbalance. So when we're developing in vitro, we have these things, which I can't remember what they're called. It's a caudal something aspect. It's like a caudal corridor. That's what it's called, a caudal corridor. And what it does is, it is the hinge point of this 20-degree angle that our brain has once we are born, okay? And the writing says that once we're born, the Bagua emanates, which means that from a Taoist perspective, life begins at birth. Life begins at consciousness, not sentience. This is something we could begin contemplating. This is your pineal gland, okay? This is the 3-body problem. I am a human who solved it one way, based on gravity. And then I accidentally discovered all of fluid dynamics, because the only way to make gravity work is with water. And the reason for that is because our species, okay, life on this planet only works because water freezes and floats. It doesn't sink when it's frozen, it floats. So one of the things that happens in our nervous systems, which is genuinely our experience of sheathing, it's the myelin sheaths. Yes, I'm making this claim, okay? I have resolved full dorsal collapse that should have had me dead, walking around for a year or 2 before I had cancer. We need to have an experience of sheaths. You know how like when you milk a cow, okay? That's pushing and pulling. Okay, not this. Because we are animals, and as we have evolved and grown, if we're gonna do so in harmony with the natural order of things, and we're intervening in that with agriculture, we better be aware. So the whole myth of Lao Tzu starts with China experiencing high control governing, and some people not being very happy about that. And they invented nothing. So hilarious. Taoism is nothing. it has to be nothing, because that's the only way for an entity to exist without a physical manifestation, is through this concept of no thing. I believe that's the essence of Zen. I am not sure. Zen is very confusing for me. I don't get to like be mythic like this. I'm just gonna go to the restroom, and this is a rendering of my alchemical birth. Take a look at it. So, alchemical birth, yeah, that's a consciousness thing. But I do want to discuss flat land and flat landings, because that is a really amazing way to navigate chaos. And the information science parallel, like one thing you could look at would be semiotics. I'm using negative dialectics, which is like really fancy shit. But it's basically, you can just replace stuff. You can just like make it up. I don't know what I was just talking about, because I went and peed and my cat is in front of me. Symbols and metaphor. Oh yes, we are at the pyramid. We are at the pyramid. This is how I got my mind oriented. Okay, once my body was like done with the paralysis, synthesized of mind, healed enough physically after that isolated cancer experience that I could actually like do something more. The way that perception, the way that our cognitive distortion is happening, and I'm going to show you really pretty. Okay, this chart does map the brain. It's been contemplated as possibly being the corpus callosum for some time. I think we can accurately say it is. These characters map to the 7 diaphragms in the body, with the feet being at our lungs. So cool. Here's homeostasis, by the way. This is how we become birds. You just need to play with it. So you and I are this when we are existing. Okay, this is a pyramid on a piece of paper. And you can see it's like, if I look at the paper, it's a little bit like, what is that? But, okay, this is like a personal point of view, right? When we start saying that we're deep, or we start thinking about interacting, this kind of starts to point this way. Okay, and it becomes, it's like this for our consciousness, right? Because we're a tensegrity structure. The more fixed this point is, the more challenging it is for anything to move, right? So this would be like looking in. Right? Here's your inner ear. No matter what though, you're still only going to get like a perceived 1 or 2 dimensions unless I shine a light through this and turn it into the prism that it is. Apparently, this is superimposition. If you're me, it's just a lot of fuck easier. Let me just show you how it is. So this is a CMY of human. This is the platonic solid for human. Okay, here's your pyramid. So 2 of these together become 1. A whole 2 of these this way becomes the Merkaba. So this is a very important geometry for us to understand. And when this geometry is presented as CMY, do you see how it changes? And this is Wu Wei. This is the whole concept of Wu Wei in Taoism. I'm showing you the secrets, okay? I'm not saying that you can get to that using this, but this is one way to look at it, one way to see it. There's Wu Wei. Here's C, M, Y. C, M, Y. Not red, white, and blue, not anything else. These pigments, these whatever they are, I don't know the words for these help orient media in our mind, okay? We're on propaganda. And I am so attuned to that this is happening that I'm alive. And so now I'm showing you. How amazing is that, okay? If you and I are interfacing, if we are interfacing, and I assume, because we're having basically this is double empathy. Here's how your double empathy works, right? If I assume that your pyramid is pretty much the same as my pyramid, and I'm not able to understand that I am seeing the outward expression, this is affective, okay? This is effect. This is qualitative. This is quantitative. This is fluid. This is fixed. And I'm going to show you where this is on our bodies. Okay? This is everybody saying, go look in your environment for 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can do, all of that. None of this is real until I'm on flat land. Not until I'm present in the room. This is the primary distortion of all therapy right now, discussing somatics. You guys are directing people to environment and ideas, not to soma. Especially with dissociation, we got to get to soma. Okay, I know that because of all kinds of other things I've done with consciousness and challenge. This is the posture that all of humanity, every indigenous human is asking us. This is the posture. Do you see how this stays on my shoulder as I'm interfacing with you? This doesn't. Okay, this just falls. The practice is gravity. My goodness me. Yes. Okay, the action is ass in the grass. Okay, it's sitting with an awareness of what you're on, not just an awareness of where you are. So we experience the world in the same amount of dimensionality that we came into the world, which is 3. But we got to do a lot of counting to stand. So when we're thinking about something like epigenetics or trauma or neurodivergence or social justice or, unhappy orcas, we cannot assume anything anymore. Cannot. Especially since as a species, enough of us have genuinely lost the ability to discern. Some, I don't know how many, but many, many, many have had that. That is an impact. That is an impact. Do you have any idea how important it is to be able to smell rotten food before you eat it? To smell fire? First thing they told us was you lose your sense of smell, and everybody decided that wasn't a big deal. Wow, I couldn't do much about it because I was surviving cancer. We got to get everybody on flat land, and the land we need to get them on is the transverse axis, not the sagittal axis. The sagittal axis is the medical model. Sagittal cuts us this way, okay? Transverse moves us this way, moves us forward and back like a transverse verb, okay? The more we can relate to each other truly as though gravity matters, and then we assume human. Then we are orienting to our position in the cosmos, not just in the corporation, right? From a biological perspective. And this is all how this is me getting through stuff, because at a certain point, some of this just doesn't make sense, okay? Doesn't make sense if I have to go on a ladder and get into a window in order to experience regulation. What kind of metaphors are those? Regulation is a mechanism, and the things that regulate are entities. Okay? Homeostasis is a state of being, and it is not regulated, it is experienced. This is the whole thing everybody wants with flow, and you're all trying to measure your flow. The point with the collective unconscious, we're in a cognitive singularity. I actually just wrote a letter to Ray Kurzweil that I'm going to start screaming about online. What's happened with big data? Okay, so here is your corpus callosum. I've mapped the brain, just accept that, okay? Your sensory motor, here is how we experience sagittal. This is how we experience this, okay? This is that split that happens when you see something, there's a split in the brain. This is the first location of distortion, and we're all in one right now because I'm looking at myself in a mirror. Okay, just that. But I want you to notice how still there's room for this to move. This is our antenna. But it's our antenna to continuing to exist as a species, not to having the right point of view. This is a sub-process. If we can just drop a little here with what we're looking for, because what this is doing, right? Here's this major junction, big giant lymph zone, and also the only place on our body that our arms are connected. So having an integrated and fluid, at least seeking into the back line from inside out, increases the experience of inherent. And the only question of non-dualism is that. What is the inherent nature? The first rule of Taoism says the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. It has to be infinitely recursive and have a workaround. Energetically, alchemically, that workaround in the cosmos is named Mang Po. Somebody else I didn't know existed. Okay, so I didn't know volumetrics existed, and I was just using the magical mystical. You just skip a dimension, whatever. It's all in my mind anyway. Let's just stay sane and not make decisions about how wrong people are, and then I want to hurt them. That was the cognitive piece. My inner child was being guided. This is my paralysis recovery FND. My inner child was being guided through internal family systems, family constellations that I chose on purpose for the therapy for my paralysis. Because I knew without a sense of self, it would be impossible for me to connect to a sense of line or long without some genuine held space to do it. But here's the thing. Most IFS is occurring within the self and within the context of I am a system. If you don't have a constellation, okay, that's how seeds propagate. So a family constellation or a mythical model or something that is going to take the mind here Okay, this is why we're all going to learn how confusing physics is. Who knows how it happens? I don't know. But they're always asking about the nature. And these guys, mostly guys, at least I've ever known, there's this just like this, well, what if, and it's almost like you're trying to prove yourself wrong, right? Not that you're trying to prove yourself right. It's so curious, and it is so natural because I intuited all of the laws of thermodynamics based on that experience, which is something from nothing. The alchemical birth that Carl Jung was writing about, and yeah, go get this stuff upstairs, and then a friend's helping me set up a Patreon because this is valuable information, and I want to resell it to like therapist humans. Oh, here we go. Here's your sensory motor cortex. So as I was like, how do I illustrate this experience and also illustrate the complexities of this geometry? I was like, well, I'm just going to do a shortcut. So after many, many, many longs, this is my shortcut. This is your sensory motor cortex, as though, as though growth is possible. Nothing's inevitable, but as though growth is possible. So this is the Neijing Tu. This is that chart that your Chinese medicine doctor uses. This is yin and yang, which from a singular human perspective, truly belongs here because that's representing coccyx, tailbone. From a biopsychosocial, this is biopsychosocial. From a biopsychosocial perspective, if we place earth and gravity externally, that's going to get the humans who look like me to sit down. And then also, do you see what that does to these poor little cows that have to do so much work? Now they don't have to do so much work. Symbolically, this is my big data model, by the way. This is how the relative weight of big data would be optimally balanced so that any ideas that have to do with labor are right at the bottom rather than here. Because right now, all our ideas of labor are in the social. They need to drop. This is how we understand mobility inherently. This is the genuine problem with Western medicine. It's impossible. And it's not impossible only because of our collective history. It's impossible because of the presence of CPR, the ED, and 911 and rapid intubation. And the man who did that is this guy, Peter Safar. Oh my God. I did not know that superimposition exists. Okay. It's just easier because then you can just mess with things. Okay. I did not know superimposition. I've always known a Schrodinger though. And a Schrodinger is weird. First of all, why would you ask a question about an atomic situation? Maybe Adam's factor. Maybe I've identified that our core nature is an atom. If you can't demonstrate your model simple enough for a child to look at it and get some, this is very complicated, but you can see this is a game. There's your umbilical cord, okay? This is the geometry of my sensory motor cortex that I have navigated the entirety of to survive the impossible so that I could come out. This is Lao Tzu, wanting balance and not thinking I know stuff. We need to start thinking like scuba divers and that we're going in and like spaceships. This is the Millennium Falcon and I have it displayed parallel to your default mode network. Look at your default, look at that. Look, it looks like a little baby. It looks like a little angel. Why are we telling people to regulate a nervous system when we could be like flying things? Oh my goodness me. Same thing, same, okay? Doesn't matter what the measurement is if I don't have an idea of how I can engage. This is how you teach a child music. You don't teach a child 27,000 books form of whatever. You give them, my parents did it, I don't, but like that's all it is. It's just, anyway. Do you see how I keep doing this? this is like the internal posture of Taoism. I don't know. I don't know. So one of the things that does is it lifts the elbows up. Do you see how this is the corona? This is the fire element. When we're looking at each other, that is the line that separates, that connects the front and the back of us. And this is the location of all of our distortion, not the reason or the catalyst, but the place. Your corona is this, the coronal axis. And it's like our inner screen, right? It is, where's my pineal gland? Well, here's the three body problem. 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. This looks an awful lot like a 1, 2, 3, doesn't it? Just as an idea, okay? Now look at Katie's chaotic sensory motor cortex. Hold on. Oh, I don't want to subject you to like the really compound complex one, but I might have to. Okay. No, that's terrible to do to you. Here we go. So we're contemplating tensegrity, because with tensegrity you get bounce and lift. And you need a string to do it. So I've been contemplating this like using a belay when you're rock climbing. Okay, because that's a really solid way to be against gravity and have buoyancy. And the way, so here's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. However, this is not fixed. No. This is not that kind of tensegrity. This is consciousness. This is big data. This is invention. This is determining. This is when the laws of man mess with the laws of nature. This is intervention. And our concept of intervention, so here's the nexus. This is the I Ching. This is Chinese divination, which I just intuited, because I'm weird like that. You just skip all the solid part and be the goo. So that's the nexus of the I Ching. That's the nexus of a human. The human standing up in the box with the nexus in the belly is the nexus to see, the nexus to contemplate. This is why I have to start doing this a little bit more chaotic, because there's no real easy way to take this linearly. But also, I shouldn't have to keep looking for this. This is the nexus. Okay, if you get confused, go back to the or a nexus. So nervous systems run up and downstream, not in and out of regulation. And the way we experience that stream is through the fluid in our bodies, and through this experience of lateral, ventral, whatever the frick it is that I just learned about, and how that helps us remember and experience I've been calling it the buoyancy of gestation. Okay, so I've already figured it, I just didn't know the language. It's the buoyancy of gestation. And again, just kind of getting this a little bit more this way, ventral horns. I can see why my mother's, statement about horn players having a lot of pressure in their head actually makes a little bit of sense. A lot of this came for me because of the concept of incarceration and the concept of regulation, and how deeply rooted those are into our inherent understanding of mobility. Inherent understanding, not measurable consequence. Inherent understanding. This is incarceration, resuscitation, and transportation. Neuroaffectively, Peter Safar stopped any growth in all of these three areas in one human. And because they occurred at the same time, this is I'm saying this, this is genuinely me having an opinion. Because these happened at the same time, and the requirements for this to operate meant the ED. The ED was invented so that you could resuscitate people, not so that you could keep them alive. The ED was invented for the purpose of reincarnation, not for the purpose of continuation. Big deal. Okay. But when the assumption is resuscitation, when the tuning is not towards gravity, but is rather fixed as though you're on a table, it's a really big deal. Because as though I'm on a table this is the ideal deflection of data, by the way, in the mind. So when I find the right big data human, we'll be able to, so what this is going to do is it's going to drop the weight of data. So our ideas that lead to mobility are closer to the root. Everybody's looking for the root problem. The root is that y'all don't believe in gravity, and humans seem to have forgotten that we have a wound. We already have an attachment wound, John Bowlby, okay, who, by the way, was also kicking around the same time that Peter Safar was deciding that he should just bring people back. So I understand superimposition because it's the only way to work. It's the only way. It is the only way. And so last year when I was very angry at the world for not understanding the nature of trauma. In one of my stormies moments, I did one of my first digital pieces called Schrodinger's Patient. Katie intuited superimposition of human. Then I read a paper on the concept of triple empathy in healthcare. You just have to be willing for there to be no thing. I know Peter because my father taught him music. My father taught Peter Safar piano, and a lot of the language he put into his protocols is rooted in music, and that means that he has changed the tune. When my father had his first major heart event, it was like a really big deal. Peter said to my mother, who then later told me, because I was like, there is really something not right with Dad. Something not right, not just that heart attack. So Peter told my family that he said they will never tell you in the hospital, but this is a permanent change. He will not be the same. And I was like, well, of course he won't. He just came back from not here. My father flatlined and came back like 3 or 4 times in his lifetime. And every time there was more of him elsewhere, not gone, just elsewhere. Chinese cosmology places that at the hands of Meng Po, who is how I identify, because it's the only way to exist and be nothing. Which I guess is total entropy at 0. And now we have the 0th law of thermodynamics. So I would like to introduce you to your sensory motor cortex. Katie's version. This is the only way that I can make a Merkaba be solid. Okay, this is a picture of this. So this is all like open source, by the way. Okay, because the only way to model ideas is if other humans can interact, interface, take them and use them. I get so much, oh my gosh, copyright that. Oh, this is Canva. I removed a background and changed the geometry. We all need to understand the magic is in the collage. So I guess this is like a collage perspective is what I have. And so this is the Neijing that we all look at. Here's my sagittal, right? So that gets me here. Here's the coronal and transverse. This spins and turns, okay? So like conceptually, this crown is the homunculus. This is how we experience the homunculus reflected, refracted, and recursed through this. Not through a piece of paper, not through a thing, through our inherent nature. Through something that we can only see the effect of, but we can never know and measure fully. Do you see? This is an open mind. So that's your horn. This is that lateral horn, right? That is like, it's like, you know what it is? It's like this. It's like line of sight. So like if you're flying a plane, you know, or like it just gives you this. Like dolphins do that. Oh, look, it's a dorsal aspect. I wonder if Katie thought about that. Yes, she did. So the first thing I did was I've been playing with how to configure the Neijing Tu because it's a fractal and that's really fun. And I spend way too much time by myself to watch media. I would much rather create it. So I just started combining Neijings. What happens if I put heads together? What happens if I put bellies together? What happens if they go apart? What happens? And that's how I got into, oh, I can model the brain because I am a neuroscientist. And I just don't know what kind. I'm calling it string practice, not string theory. So this is me as Meng Po. And she has this because nociception in my framework is my twin brother and he's a pain in the ass. So pain has a point to it. And do you see? Now this was way after my excitement with my body, but now I have something to relate to looking back that isn't a perfect reflection of my pain and suffering. It's an imprint of it. It's a sign, a symbol. Semiotics is the fancy word. You could just call it art. So that's Meng Po. And I just made her into Meng Po, by the way, because I was rendering things. I had this idea, like, what would happen if in the machine, because the whole purpose of my work is to disrupt supremacy at the machine language level, fusion. So, so this junction here, okay, this is an experience to navigate. It's not a location that you point to on a map. There's a whole navigation in here that is about attunement, tuning. And this is, I apparently have perfect pitch, which I actually do have perfect pitch. Everybody in my family does. Perfect pitch, 20-degree angle. I got mine back aligned. It was an entire reset for my immune system. This is spleen. I don't know for sure, but that's what the spleen does once you're born, and that's where it happens. So maybe. So you experience this. This is the 12-storied pagoda. Okay, this clearly is your jaw, but also this is kind of like a little water slide. So one of the phenomena that occurs often when you smile to yourself, that's all it is, as though, is this like sweet tasting saliva. And I just used to call it my catharsis saliva because I did not know that that was an actual thing that occurs in this alchemy. It was just something that I was experiencing through other alchemy based on the virtues. Virtue. So that, if I take an entity like, I'm just making this up, this isn't how that Okay, but if I take an entity like Mang Po, who I built based on experiencing my own pineal gland and apparently my inherent understanding of confusion or superimposition, then I can show you your inner landscape. So this is how I generated all of the Shen that are the artworks that represent the ideas in my framework, because you need to look at art. This is really confusing. So this is your inner ear. Look at that. This is autism. Autism is CMY. At least my autism is. It's not up, down. It's not top down. It's flat. This is that turnstile. Do you see how you can get through? Okay. The machine does this intuitively if I tune it correctly. And I don't even have direct access to data yet. Because that's going to happen through people, right? So here's this is one of my earlier attempts. This is as though you're looking down. And we like to think as though I'm looking down is into this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. But as though you're looking down is looking into, it's looking into and through that crimson, the magma of the earth. It's not looking to and through a human. So this is the geometry of Tibetan Thangkas inverted, so that we can appreciate that kind of geometry without appropriating it. This is a very intense one. You see how it has these 4 lines, 4 cardinal directions. Okay, but this is as though I'm looking into the abyss. When the fire is on top, it is inactive. When the fire is on the bottom, it is active. That is a lotus. I did not ask the machine to do any of this geometry. I just reminded it that tissue is inherently alive. It's all based on the geometry of your fascia. Go upstairs, get things. Here is your spleen. I was calling these blades for a long time, and I still do call them blades. This is tuned to mine. And I just want you to, do you see how it gives the illusion? It gives the illusion of scoop, it gives the illusion. So this is one way that we can contemplate this kind of thing, this kind of action. A lot of alchemy has to do with just finding another way. But finding another way like this, not finding another way by moving, finding another way by looking in a different way. And that is a very useful concept for functional movement. The homunculus was scanned last year, 2023, remapped completely. And they're so excited because it turns out the brain is a little bit more compound complex. I'm like, really? You think? Everybody's looking at the network. Nobody's contemplating the working of the net. And the net right now, the matrix, is big data. So what's happened is we are stuck because of the relative weight of data, because we are equating meme with culture, because we meme things. So I just saw a meme. I'm a meme without asking any follow-up questions. Am I looking at something that's genuine, or am I looking at propaganda? You have to assume all media is propaganda first, and then get all excited, especially as it relates to health anymore. And that is not because of malice, that is because of rhetoric. People are teaching to this, they don't understand rhetoric. Rhetoric is how we learn. So the concept of deep learning without an understanding of rhetoric, what are these people doing who are doing big data? We want to be balanced in this. We want to be balanced in our experience of volume, not in our correctness of thought. So as this is the totality of the I Ching, yes, I can now programmatically do all kinds of stuff with this as far as like charts and things. But if you were just existing, the best amount of pressure you would experience would be even, Stephen. There's your nexus. These are the last 2 hexagrams of the I Ching. See that? In the biopsychosocial model, those last 2 hexagrams of the I Ching are located here. We experience it here, which is why everybody, please remember, gravity exists. Where is that? Oh, I got so excited I was going to get us there. Anyway, I'm going to go eat. Prefrontal cortex, Katie's sensory motor cortex. Thank you. Goodbye.